Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Laura, and I'm joined by my colleague Sammy. We are going to take up about 30 minutes of your time today and talk about Equatio and how you can use it in your classroom. All of our contact details are on the screen, so feel free to copy them down, but I will share the presentation with you after as well. Hopefully you all get the chance to ask any questions today. On the right hand side of your screen there should be an area where you can ask questions, you can interact, so feel free to introduce yourself and say hi. If you're watching the recording, which I'll also send out after, please do feel free to email us any questions or drop us a line. So Sammy and I both work for TextHelp, and at TextHelp we create technology to help people communicate. All of our products are built with accessibility in mind, ensuring that every student has the same opportunity for learning. So I do know that some of our Read and Write customers are on today, so you're very welcome. So Read and Write, I always say, is our bread and butter. That's the first solution that I sold. We have many more solutions to help you in your educational setting. We have a solution called Orbit Note, which is relatively new. It came out last year, and that's a brilliant tool for PDFs. But today what we're going to do is focus on Equatio. So Equatio today we're going to focus on and give you 5 tips or 5 examples of how to use Equatio in your classroom. And that's going to be Sammy's job. I'm going to pass over to her when we get there. I'm just doing the easy bit of introducing it. So as I've mentioned at TextHelp, we focus on accessibility. And I hope everyone agrees, but we do feel at TextHelp that maths isn't particularly accessible. And there's very few tools out there that can make it accessible. We want to, with Equatio, give students the power to read maths anywhere. And hopefully by the end of the presentation, you will understand what we mean by that and see through the examples that Sammy shows you that we can make maths accessible. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove my screen and add Sammy. So you've done that and all. Thank you, Sammy.
No problem at all. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, so we want to make sure that maths is accessible to students. And so we've got a little example here where we've got an online learning platform, which you may be familiar with using in your colleges. And what we're doing here is we're showing how Equatio can bring that maths and make it accessible. We can use our screenshot reader. And if you're a Read and Write customer, you'll be familiar with that. What's different about the Equatio one is that it's specific for maths and it reads with the functionality of maths as well. So things to the power of or the index of, it's read aloud with. But we also work with YouTube videos and handwritten maths. So in here, we've got handwritten maths in a YouTube video. We can use the screenshot reader and we can bring that maths out of the page. We can make that accessible and help students read maths anywhere. For students who are struggling as well to identify where the maths exists on the page, we have a little feature called the discoverability tool. And what the discoverability tool does is puts the little blue box around the maths on the page and finds it for the students. And that's it there, just coming on now. And once we've done that, we can make that maths accessible and we can take it with us on our journey wherever we are working. But here at TextHelp, we're going beyond the reading of maths. The reading of maths takes it so far. We want to go beyond that. And we want to support students in accessing maths in ways that previously have been unable to engage with. So we offer multiple means of input, multiple ways of expressing the maths. And we'll show you a few quick wins as we go through. I've got here a typical ratio question. I've been a maths teacher for many years. And it's talking about red and blue counters in a bag. There is a lot of decoding that needs to happen with this text. We are relying on students to decode so much information in that text that actually the maths can get lost. What if we could make it a little bit easier for students? What if we could make it a bit more student-friendly for them to tackle the problem? What if I represented the question like this? Hopefully you agree, automatically we've made the problem better. We've made the question easier to understand. We've released a little bit of that pressure of the cognitive load in asking students to decode so much information. And we've created a visual to stimulate the students and get them on their journey with the maths. And I always say the hardest thing for maths, teaching maths, is getting students to pick up the pen or start their answer. So that was made in Math Space, which is our whiteboarding space. But what if we took it even further? And that example that I showed you where we'd put the images on, what if we gave students the power to annotate, to sketch, to cross off, to identify, to group, to manipulate, to move. And that's all possible in math space. If you think of anything that you can do in a whiteboarding space, math space, you can do that. And we have in there all the manipulatives that students need to help them tackle the maths. So we've done some grouping there using the pen tool, and we're going to group some more, and then we're going to cross off and annotate as well. And I think once students can see and feel the maths, that cognitive load becomes lighter again, and it becomes less of an onerous task for students to be able to engage with the maths. Globally then with Equatio, we have over 10 million users of the product. So this product, although fairly new in our repertoire, it is rapidly growing and rapidly seeing high rates of adoption with maths teachers and science teachers all around the world. What we're trying to do when I say about offering multiple means of input is that we have predictions built in. And sometimes for students, just knowing that they're on the right track is enough to get them going, especially in FE maths when it's not the first time they've seen this content, it's not the first time they've engaged with it. So when we introduce predictions, which are in student speak, it gives them that confidence that they can keep going with the maths. It overcomes any hurdles they may have. So an example might be, in predictions, a student might type in the word over to get a fraction. Over is in student speak. You and I might know it as a fraction with a numerator and a denominator, but to have over just gives students that opportunity to express in their speech. Same with times. The predictions are built to include times as well as multiply, which is how we would naturally speak our maths. We have a full Latex editor, so if you are teaching core maths or level 3 or level 4 maths, Latex is fully supported within Equatio as well, but for those of us with GCSE or functional skills maths, it's a really great tool still for copying and making resources, and we'll have a look later on. We have a full graph editor powered by Desmos. So if you are a fan of drawing your graphs or line segments using Desmos, we have that built in. The difference with ours is, as well as having the audio tracing, again, making it accessible because that's what we do here at TextHelp, we also have in the Desmos calculator predictions built in as well. And that again just builds student confidence and familiarity with the tool. Handwriting input, I think it's sometimes a bit unnatural that we ask students to type maths, and especially when we're trying to do large-scale assessments across multi-site colleges, we are relying on them to type maths. Well, we support handwritten maths and we type it up. So the reason we switch to type maths as teachers is sometimes to reduce teacher marking and teacher workload. By supporting handwritten maths, we're bridging both of those. We're helping students with their method of input, and we're helping teachers as well with reducing that mark load. Same with speech input for those who have mobility issues, but also confidence issues. It's often easier to speak your maths than to think about what it would look like written. Mobile features allow us to handwrite pages, type up handwritten maths, pages and pages with a single click and insert that into the document where you're working. The little cube that you've seen is MathSpace, which I just showed you briefly, and the screenshot reader. If you are familiar with Read and Write, you'll be familiar with that, and that discoverability that we talked about as well. And we work across all major platforms, Windows, Google, Mac, wherever you're working on, we have Equatio for you. We're trying to support students who are experiencing challenges with their learning of maths. And I think the bottom one on this list is probably the key one for me. Having taught FE maths for many, many years, a specific learning difficulty in maths is that umbrella term that we use, but actually it's the most important one that I see regularly. It's that issue with maths that could be dyslexia, it could be a bit of dyscalculia, it could be a bit of dyspraxia, it could be autism, it could be ADHD. And the overarching term of specific learning difficulty in maths, we know that less than 4% of people encounter a dyscalculia diagnosis, but actually the numbers experiencing challenging in maths can be up to 90% depending on the situation. What we're trying to do here by offering multiple means of input, multiple means of expression, is to release the pressure of whatever difficulty the student is facing. Whatever challenge they're facing, we want to help them. We could be a full solution, part of a solution, or the beginning step to help them tackle the problem. So we're going to have a look at 5 ways of putting Equatio in your classroom today, hopefully. And just really quick wins that come from my classroom. I left the FE maths classroom at Easter this year, so fairly fresh from the classroom. And these are ways that I know that my students have enjoyed experiencing Equatio in the classroom. So the first one is to support students outside the classroom with manipulatives. And what I mean by this is that box that lives in my cupboard, in my classroom of coins, counters, cubes, that box that I want to give them in the classroom that helps them express and helps them work out problems, I want to give them that digitally. So MathSpace is the tool that I choose to do that with when I'm supporting outside the classroom. So in the math space, we have over 250 shapes. In this example, I'm just going to search for coins, and you see with multiple currencies that we can bring in as well. So if we have students new to the UK, we can bring in currency that's more familiar to them. Really simply, we just drag and click those coins in. It's just one click for all those coins to come in. And then what we can do is infinitely clone those coins. And what that means is students will never run out of those coins. So however many times they need those coins to help them solve a problem, they can go back in, drag and drop them to help them solve a problem. For my students, it was a huge deal for them to use the coins for decimal addition and subtraction. They really needed to see and feel those coins to help with decimals. It's just one of the challenges that they faced. We also have the tens blocks built in, and you can see it's just one click to bring all these shapes in. All those 20 counters on the tens frame, it's one click to bring them in. Students have access to create this themselves, but teachers can create this too. This is an example of me creating a number line now. It's all in the same math space. And the number line you can customize with the number of steps. Are you going up in twos? Are you going up in fives? For me, for my students, it was starting with negative numbers. They needed a number line that went from negative 10 all the way up to positive 10 to help them with that ordinality of the number system. So the beauty of doing it in MathSpace is you can share direct to Google Classroom, or if you're a Microsoft Teams user, you can paste the link into Microsoft Teams. And I just left it pinned at the top of my classroom. And whenever they needed help, that help was there for them. So whenever they needed access to these coins, they could go grab the coins, drag and drop them and manipulate them, and then go back to wherever they were working. It was that space where they could do the working out. So it's just super simple to drag them in and just build a bank of resources for students to access outside the classroom. You might have a different one if you're doing shape, space, measure. You might have a different one if you're doing statistics. You might have a different one if you're doing number. For me, this was just a general one that my students had. It had the tens blocks in, the coins in, and the number line in. And they knew where they could get that support. Because ultimately, we want to drive their independence. We know they need this support. They know they need this support. And if they can independently access this support, then that drives that student independence that, yeah, we're experiencing a challenge in our learning of maths, and we're going to need some coins to help us understand that. Or we're going to need some counters to help us understand that. But we're going to drive and support that independence, that I know how to get help, I know when to ask for help, and I know where that help is readily available. So I think Equatio MathSpace is a really fabulous tool for building those manipulative supports outside the classroom. Anything that would have existed as a physical or a concrete resource in the classroom, we've replicated here in MathSpace, and then we've assigned to our students in Google Classroom or in Microsoft Teams, and they can grab that whenever they need it. I think the quickest way to put Equatio in your classroom, though, however, is exit tickets. Exit tickets are bread and butter of teaching. That quick check for how did the lesson go and where did we get to at the end point. Once you have the Chrome extension installed, and if you're a Google Forms user, you can just click the little blue icon and you can create questions for your students, multiple choice, or you can leave it free answer. Equatio works both ways. And you can see those predictions still been in with the equals, and type in EQ as the letter and it's offering me the equals sign. You can create multiple choice quizzes. You can create short answer text, and students can respond using Equatio as well. So I think it's really important to remember that students can respond using Equatio, clicking that blue button, and they can insert their response using Equatio as well. You can set it self-marking, as you can in Google Forms, that it will check that response, even if that response is written in Equatio, and it will self-mark against it as well. So I think exit tickets are a really simple way to build Equatio into your classroom. I absolutely love modelling. The power of a worked example is one of the greatest joys of teaching. The challenges we have as maths teachers to articulate that model worked example, though, means that we may often lean towards less accessible ways to share that worked example. So imagine I've done a quick sketch on the board, tackling an AO3 type question. And then I take a quick photo of my board work and I upload it to Google Classroom. Job done, sorted. They've got access to that when they leave the classroom. That expert thinker that I am, that's tackled this problem as the expert in the room as the teacher, they have access to that insight. But that image might be grainy, it might be shadowy, it might not incorporate everything that was on the board. I might actually upload it forgetting that I have students who have additional needs that might not be able to access that independently. And I might end up with more questions than I wish for when I come back into the classroom the next time. So the super brilliant thing about Equatio is that you can handwrite your worked examples and Equatio will type them up. So in this example, we're using Jamboard and using the Jamboard, turning on the Chrome extension so it sits at the bottom. You can use the screenshot reader. So what we looked at the beginning in terms of grabbing the maths from the handwritten maths on the YouTube page, we can access that maths and bring it into that equation editor typed up. Once we've got that, we can insert that into the document. And although this example is looking at Jamboard, this will work anywhere. So if you were using a traditional whiteboard and you'd handwritten with board marker pens, that photograph that you took, you can also screenshot reader that or use Equatio Mobile, and that would type that up for you as well. I particularly like using it in Jamboard. You can see I've gone for pi as well, and I've gone for a fraction, and I've purposely done pi badly, and I've purposely done my multiply badly. And when you drag the screenshot reader over the full page, that full answer, it's typed it up beautifully for me. And I think for students to see an expert's approach to tackle the problem is really handy and really brilliant. Using Equatio makes me as a teacher sort of neaten up a little bit. It's a lot easier for them to read. And if we think about lightening that cognitive load that we're always trying to lighten for students, by being able to have it typed up for them, it's taken no extra work from me as the teacher. It's still the natural flow of my lesson. It's been typed up for my students, inserted in an accessible way, and it will read it aloud. And I think the power of having something read aloud to you, again, to lighten that cognitive load, can't be underestimated. It's a lot easier to hear a story than to sit and read a book. And we know that, lived experiences learned through storytelling have significant impact. So there's something about the way the brain decodes these messages and builds those connectors together. So you can either model using Jamboard like I've shown there, or you can handwrite on your board. Use Equatio Mobile using your mobile phone to take that picture and insert it typed into your document. Basically, Equatio will type up your maths for you. And I think for students, that's a really nice thing too, because it promotes those high standards. Their writing needs to be neat enough that Equatio will pick it up. It's very good at picking it up. I've tested it on my eldest child who's in Key Stage 1. But it promotes those high standards to students as well. Obviously, because we're TextHelp, create accessible resources. There is nothing more challenging than when students have sat an online learning platform question and they've all hit the same roadblock. They've all hit the same problem at the question number 3 in the online learning platform. How do we as a teacher pull that question out of the online learning platform, create that resource to support the students, differentiate to support them, and make it accessible without it being an onerous task for us, and default into pencil and paper, which I'll be honest would be my way of doing it. So using that screenshot reader that we've looked at a few times now, we can drag over the maths and we have these 3 dots, which is more options. And we've got that option of copy LaTeX. I'm not an expert in LaTeX. Don't think anyone else needs to be an expert in LaTeX to use this. Once you go down to the LaTeX editor in Equatio, you can paste in what it copied, and it has inserted that question from that online learning platform. So what we're talking about here is we can take a question that exists in a YouTube video, a question that exists in an online learning platform. We can copy the LaTeX, don't need to be an expert in it, paste it in, and it will type up what it's copied and insert it wherever we're working and create a new resource. Then we can differentiate, we can change the values or the figures to increase or decrease difficulty, probably decrease difficulty if they hit that roadblock. And we can change the values and figures, make the questions bespoke for our students, but really simply as a teacher, create resources. And that's just that pasting of the LaTeX again, and then it just types it up and inserts it in. Wherever maths happens on a web page, you can use the screenshot reader, or in a PDF as well. You can use the screenshot reader to copy that maths and take it wherever you are working. And then you can customize, adjust, differentiate, increase, decrease levels of difficulty for students. So it makes resource creation a lot simpler and a lot easier, especially if it's somewhere that they've particularly hit that roadblock and hit that challenge themselves as students. I think it's a really nice way to make those resources for students. And also just to say as well, this will go into Microsoft Word. I know this example is looking at Google Docs, but we do work across Windows and Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint and Google Slides. Anywhere that maths is happening on, you may be working, we can be there with you with Equatio. All of this maths is accessible and can all be read aloud. So again, thinking about lightening that cognitive load, making things accessible, supporting students wherever they're working, creating that normal way of working. And just to say as well, black text on a white background, not a problem. We can change the colour in this as well. So really supporting students and teachers wherever you're working. So I'm going to hand back over to Laura now and just remove my, oh, there you go.
They were great examples, and hopefully they're examples that you could actually use in the classroom straight away. Equatio is a very, very easy tool to get used to. As you can see from the toolbar, there's only a handful of features on it, so it is very user-friendly as well. So what I'm going to touch on now is the ability of Equatio to be used as a computer reader as well. So this might be new to some people that are watching this. Equatio is an approved JCQ computer reader. What that means is you can actually replace your human readers in the maths and science exams. Equatio exams is a secure, approved, and an accurate computer reader. So as I said, this might be new to some people. Some people aren't even aware that you can do this. So what I've done is I have pasted the JCQ access arrangements insert and put the page number there as well. So a computer reader may decode symbols and unit abbreviations in maths and science examinations for candidates who require this arrangement in order to access the assessment and where it reflects the candidate's current and normal way of working within the centre. So as Sammy said there, it is all about making it their normal way of working. It's getting the student used to it. If that is the case and your student has access arrangements, they can be offered Equatio as a computer reader as an alternative to a human reader. Not all students will take you up on this offer, but it's an option as well. If they use a computer reader, what it means is you can set a handful of them, as many as you can fit really, into a computer room safely, a computer away from each other. That means they're all sitting with their peers. Being able to read the maths and science back, they can have it read back as many times as they wish. I'm sure we're all aware if they have a human support with them, they may ask once, they'll definitely not ask twice. So Equatio has many features which Sammy has skillfully went through. What you do then is you remove the majority of those features during an exam and you leave just on the screenshot reader, which Sammy did actually show. So that is where you draw the box around I keep on saying text. I'm so used to talking about reading, right? You draw the box around the math or the science and you can hear it aloud as well. So just to go over that, Equatio is an approved JCQ exam reader, computer reader. It's available for students who have access arrangement and it does need to be their normal way of working. So as I said before, I know there's plenty of Read and Write customers signed up for today's webinar. So whether you're online now or you're watching the recording, it's basically the equivalent of Read and Write an exam. That's your Equatio would be what you would use for a maths exam as well. So that's how it would look. You would have the Equatio toolbar. You use the screenshot reader, you screenshot round the maths or science formula and you hit the play button. It means you can hear it back as often as you like as well. So if you're already using Read and Write, maybe you're not. If you were to get both Read and Write and Equatio, you would have a total reading solution for exams. Read and Write would be used for the English text or language and Equatio would be used in your maths and science exams as well. So it's giving your students an option, and that's what it's all about, as Sammy said there. It's not really fair to move them away from pen and paper if that's what they're used to day, but they can write on a touch screen and it will create and generate the digital math for you. And it's the same when it comes to exam. It's given them the option. Do you want a human reader, or do you want to be able to sit with your peers and hear back the text as often and as quickly as you like with just a set of earphones on as well? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll back to the start, and there's probably an easier way to do this, and just have mine and Sammy's details on the screen there. So that's both our email addresses and our Twitter handles. Do feel free to get in touch with us. As I said, I will send the presentation to everyone that has signed up. If you want a trial, or if you have any questions, me and Sammy are happy to jump on a call or do a more detailed demonstration to you and your college or school as well. So thank you very much. I'm not sure, Sammy, if you have any closing words as well.
No, I think that was great, Laura. I think we've covered a lot of ground there, and we appreciate it's quite a rapid go through of the product, but we wanted to give you the edited highlights of how you can put it in the classroom and how we see it sitting as a normal way of working for students.
So thank you very much. I'll send out the recording, and I look forward to hearing from you.